On a county surplus sale, yeah.
We should have bought it back and donated it to her.
There was talk about that, but
Hey, but a lot of hours in that. Back in the day, they had some pretty. Back in the day, they had some pretty lengthy meetings.
fire marshal. I have 9 o'clock.
Right, Luke. Luke is passing a clipboard around. We'd like to have you sign it and put your address on the line that indicates such. If you plan on speaking to the board today, if you're speaking for yourself, you don't have to fill some of that part out, but if you're speaking for people, please notify who you're speaking for. If you're speaking for someone, we will expect you to be able to tell us who you're speaking for, and we'll invite them forward as well. It's 9 a.m. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday, May 8th. Welcome to our weekly Catalina County Board of Commissioners meeting. We will open up the meeting with the Pledge to Allegiance, and we would ask you to stand and remove your hats, and I will lead the pledge this morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I always think we need to.
Well, we had a little shower of rain last night. For those of you that have your corn and your wheat in and your fertilizer down, you probably would have liked to have a nice half-inch of warm rain. And for those of you that have some corn left to put in, or wheat or whatever, you probably would like to see it delay for a few days so you could wrap that job up. But it's amazing how we have caught up. I was listening to a report earlier this morning, and you know, overall the entire nation, even though the spring has been cold and miserable, actually the planting percentages are in pretty darn good shape. It's amazing how the Lord kind of looks out for us and gives us an opportunity to come back. A couple of ground rules. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off right now or silence it. And if you do get a call that you need to take, please step out into the rotunda area and take the call so you don't disrupt those that are speaking at that particular time, or you don't disrupt the meeting. Is there anyone here that will be wanting to address the board after our public hearing in reference to something other than Ordinance 68? Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? That way we can allow time during the item on the agenda that says open for that area. I see none, then we'll go ahead and proceed. Having that said, I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
To approve the agenda.
We have a motion by Hatton, a second by Van Duzen. Discussion? Any discussion? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Action to approve the minutes of the May 1st meeting.
As emailed.
We have a motion by Hatton, a second by Gable. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
What's that?
We forgot to mention that we're streaming.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Brenda. One of the things that I always do when I open up the meeting is to remind people that this meeting is being streamed live. I want you to know that, so if you are addressing the board, you will be streamed live. And And this will give you an opportunity to show your children and your grandchildren years down the road, because it will always be there, and it is now. We have documented our meetings for a number of years now. Some of our people always accuse us of not being transparent. Well, you find out what transparent is today, so that's good. All right, let's go on with our monthly reports. Director of Equalization, Shauna. Good morning.
I do? Well, I thought maybe I should get you in and out.
Thanks.
Yep.
Good morning.
Morning, Shauna.
We have gotten all of our board changes updated in our system, and we are working on all of the November through April sales splits, any new plots that have come in. Our first half of the year sales are due in June, so we're getting them done. And the appraisers are getting all the reappraisal cards ready to go out. We are going to hit Compesca, Pelican, and Sheridan Townships, and we are going to do all of the ag and the small acreages together at the same time.
Okay. But,
That's all I got.
all right. Any questions, any comments for Shauna?
From the boards, are we having any going further?
I still think they have time. I haven't heard anything as of yet.
All right.
One of the things, Shauna, that I've had an opportunity to discuss with Luke, isn't here right now, but with First District and also the Upper Sioux Watershed, and that's in reference to the buffer strip, okay? I want you to work with First District as well as the Upper Sioux River Watershed, and the legislature has given us the authority to expand those boundaries now.
Riparian.
They used to be just basically Sioux River and you know, the area. Now we can go back and look at the tributaries that feed the Sioux River and possibly expand, and then also introduce some new programs that may or could affect some of the people that are discussing this. But I've asked the watershed people and First District if we could get together here in the next week or so and start identifying those, because if there's grass strips need to be planted, they should be planted now. And so just to give you a heads up what I'm going to be looking for. All right?
Alrighty.
Thank you, Shauna.
Yep.
That is something that I actually already was down in the office and kind of took a look at that, and that's a little bit cumbersome to try to figure some of that out along there.
We get First
almost need
District.
to have-
First District has our Roger Foote in the watershed has. He already has the names and addresses of those that could be affected last year. So he's got a lot of that work already done, and so we just have to add on to it. Kennedy County was one of the most successful counties in the state last year, and we had 4.
I was going to say,
We had 6,
we had taken
we had
advantage
6
of it.
parcels and
Yeah.
4 different people that, and the reason was is because all it was a 40% reduction on their assessed value of that property.
of that soil type.
Of that
that
soil
soil
type.
type.
Now we can go back and we can actually add, through the help of Roger Foote and the Upper Sioux River Watershed Project, some additional revenues. And we need to look at those and how they're going to affect. And I know all of a sudden a very small payment will probably amount to a little bit larger payment, and maybe a one-time stipend to those producers along those tributaries. But we need to really identify
Where they're at.
where they're at. That's the main thing we need to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, does Roger have a list of kind of ideas?
Roger has everything.
Okay.
Roger's got his,
All right.
Roger's got it, he's been working on this, and he's got a list and the names and addresses of the property owners that this would affect.
Okay.
And so that's where we need his help.
I also attend the NRCS monthly meetings, and that's something too, maybe I should bring them into the picture on, so they may have producers with CRP and that sort of thing that could, you know, potentially be added on in those areas.
Yeah, and it needs to be addressed how we are going, there's a lot of things we have to address.
Right.
Like if it's going through a pasture, if it's going through CRP or all these other things. So
Yeah.
that's what we need to We're going to get her in order, though. We're going to get her done. All right? Thank you.
I'll keep NRCS informed or bring them in on the loop.
All right, anything else for Shauna? Anything else for Shauna? Seeing none, thank you, Shauna. Let's go on to the auditor. Cindy, what you got for us today?
We
Besides
are
bills.
mainly focused on election right now. We've had about just under 400 absentee ballots have been cast so far. Still working on finding precinct workers. I need one from Elmira, and I need 2 workers from the Germantown and Rawville Township. I am combining the precincts again for the primary like I usually do, which cuts down on the number of voters or precinct workers that I need. And we are working the logistics of getting ballot boxes ready to go, supplies to the election workers, and ballots sent out to all the precincts. Working on our new touchscreen vote recorders. We've got those all ready to go. Those are the new express votes. Those are a little different. So our main focus right now is election.
All right, questions for Cindy? I have a couple here. Please repeat, who do you need precinct workers for? Rawville, you needed how many?
I need a Republican in Elmira, and I need a Republican and Democrat from the Germantown-Rawville area.
Okay, does everybody hear that? So if you're interested, there's an opportunity. And you actually get paid. What do you get paid?
$150 for sitting on election day, and then you get $50 for coming to the school that I put on beforehand.
Okay, you need a Republican and
Republican and Democrat in Germantown-Rawville,
Yep.
and a Republican in Elmira.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions for Cindy? All right, let's go on then to item number 5, action to approve the auditor's account with the treasurer, and that is in your packet.
And this report is an account of the cash and cash items that were on hand as of the last day of April 2018. Total cash counted that day was $1,490,883.94, which means that's what the treasurer's office took in on that last day of April, which was also the last day to pay the first half of your property taxes. It also shows you where our general ledger cash balances are between the general fund, special revenue fund, trust and agency funds, which are the schools, the townships, and the cities and towns. So there is about $12 million that does not belong to the county that will be paid out to those taxing entities for the first half property tax collections. And we also have the Register of Deeds fees that were collected in the month of April, and those were $32,342.
Move to approve the account with the treasurer.
You heard the motion? Is there a second by Waterman? Any questions, any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on to number 6, approve the 2018 and 2019 malt beverage license renewals, and that is also in your packet. We have a half a dozen of them or so.
4.
4 of them. Okay.
There are 4 malt beverage license holders in Cottington County: the South Fork Lounge, the Rooster Bar, Dakota Sioux Casino, and Rawville Station. The cost for a license is $300 a year. $150 of that stays with the county, and $150 goes to the Department of Revenue. I did check with one of the deputy sheriffs, and they said they've had no complaints on any of these establishments.
Move to approve those malt beverage renewals.
We have a motion to approve, second by Van Duzen. Any discussion? For those of you that probably have never seen this process before, we used to have the sheriff report directly to us on this item and report the incidents that did happen in these facilities. So we had a pretty good handle on how many times the law was called to these facilities and what was the action that was required and so on and so forth. So we decided to streamline that a little bit and just have an oral report ahead of time. All right, you've heard the motion. There's a second. Any more discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'm going to take a minute right now and there are more people out in the audience now. If you wish to address the board during our open, you will need to sign up in the sign-up sheet. And here, will you hand that out to these gentlemen? And I've got 2 or 3 clipboards up here. There's a bunch of people just coming in the back door back here. Please get signed up if you wish to address the board.
If you wish to address the board.
We're not taking a roll to see if you're here or not. Just address the board. Thank you. All right, let's go on to number 7 on the agenda, action to approve the fiscal year WIC contract, and that's in women and children, and that is in your packet, and it's the thick one. It's this big baby here. I have had a chance to review it. As in the past years, I see very little, or if any. There is just a little bit of a change. Cindy will explain that to us. But otherwise, they're very, very much the same as we have acted under for a number of years. Entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Gable, seconded by Hatton. Discussion. And the discussion, Cindy, would you fill us in on any
This is
changes?
our annual contract with the South Dakota Department of Health for WIC clerical services. Total grant award is $43,855, which is a slight increase from the prior year, and I think that's probably based on the number of clients that they see at our WIC office. They see a good number of clients. So this is the amount that the state will go up to reimburse us for. So we do budget a little bit on our own to cover the full-time position of the clerical worker in the WIC office.
Cindy, is this an annual?
It's an annual agreement, correct.
Any more questions or discussion? Did I say that right? WIC is women,
Women, infants, and children.
women, infant, children
Yes. Yep.
services.
Mr. Chairman, this is basically then from the federal government to the state government to the counties for administration.
I'm not sure how much of it comes from the federal government. We categorize it as a state grant because it comes to us from the state, directly from the state. That's how we look at it.
If you
It does say receiving federal pass-through dollars.
read the contract, it'll have it broken down a little
It
bit.
used to be fully funded, but I would say probably about 10 years ago, the state cut back on the funding so that the counties, if they want to maintain a full-time person, we do have to budget some funds for it.
Any other questions? Good questions. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Are there any more questions? Any more questions? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on item number 9. Or 8, I'm sorry. This is action to approve the annual road striping funding agreement, and that as well is in your packet. And we'll ask our newly appointed highway superintendent, Rick, to share with us. I said, summarize what he gave us. He gave us a handout, and that is in your packet.
The striping agreement is for you to sign. The state pays 60% of the striping, the county pays 40%. And that, you can have that.
Thank you.
And then the rest of it was what we did for road count on a road that they wanted the speed limit reduced on County Road 7 south of 212. And on the north end, it shows that there was 1,216 vehicles across there, and 49% of the traffic was on the north end. On the south end, there was only 436 vehicles, and this was all over a week's time. So, and it gives you the class of vehicles from motorcycles up to the doubles. And I guess there's not a triple on there, but buses, SUVs, everything. It gives you all the information you want even the speed, it doesn't, let me rephrase that, it doesn't give you the speed, it just, it gives you the, how fast they were in each area from 75 to 81. There was one, and then on down the line. Most of them were in the regularly zoned 55 limit, so, you know.
So, there was one between 93 and 99 miles per hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was in a hurry. Must have been late to lunch, huh?
Yeah.
Deputy going to the call.
You know, and it doesn't give you the time
That must be
of day, so
an anomaly.
that's the only, and it probably could if I got in there and did a little more research on it, but that gives you a brief summary of what the traffic count is, so.
We have an individual sitting out in the audience today that probably can tell us who was running at 91, between 91 and 93 and 99. Is there anyone else that lives on that stretch beside Al Casperson in here today? Are you it, Al? Yep. I'll certainly will share my packet with you so you can look at the statistics, okay?
Rick, how does that
You might wanna
measure
say
speed,
which
6 to
section,
99? Is
land
that
or
new
road
traffic
we're talking
counter? or-
Yeah.
Probably don't
So
know.
if you got it from the time the front axle to the back axle goes over, it measures that speed, or how does that do that?
I'm not exactly sure yet. I haven't had time to play with it a whole lot. Rick and I set these up before he left, and so.
I think there's two.
Yep,
There's two rubber
strips.
strips, and so from,
Times it.
how they hit that
Yep.
is what that times it.
That would be my guess, so.
And these aren't like the old ones. I remember the old ones, you could get in the ditch and blow in the tube and make that meter run. You can't do it with these now. They're pretty accurate.
Oh,
By the way, we should, just, a lot of you probably
Clarification.
don't know where that,
This is when they came in. It was like
April 17th of
17th.
2018, so it's pretty new technology.
No, this is when they requested to lower the speed limit. That's when the petitions
Okay,
were filed.
that's when the petitions were filed. What stretch of road are we exactly talking about? Because a lot of people in here that aren't familiar with that.
County Road 76, east of town, south of 12.
Is that where that post or the twine strings are hanging on it, out east of town, or?
No,
Oh,
no.
what, we refer to those roads as maybe the Bureau Road?
No,
No,
that would
it's
be the
further
entrance.
east of that.
A mile east of that, I think, right?
Yeah, a couple miles east of that.
A couple miles east of that.
Yes.
You bet. Well, everybody knows where Al Casperson lives, so.
Well,
So the question was I think the request was to lower the speed limit
Correct.
on that stretch of road. And we wanted a traffic count before we did that to see.
Yeah.
So,
And most of the traffic is right on the north end, so.
okay.
That being said,
There's nothing on the agenda.
there's nothing on the
to
agenda. Do you
allow
wish
this
we
today,
put it
so-
on the agenda to act on it at our next meeting?
maybe we should share it with the individuals that filed the petition and see what their thoughts are after seeing the data that we've collected.
Is this,
And we have that list.
is it an ordinance? I mean, essentially, that we'd be talking about, we do a
Yes,
reading and
it is
first and
going
second
to
reading,
be
a public hearing.
revising the
and all.
ordinance, so you're going to
Yeah,
need a
so
first
it's like-
reading, second reading, and a
Yeah.
public hearing.
I would also
Rather
like
than put
to,
it on the agenda, I would agree with Brenda and share this information and do a little private discussion with them so they can give us their
Well,
input.
would next Tuesday be time enough to contact these people and have them
I don't think so.
Maybe
a couple
for the-
weeks?
for the discussion.
We'll share the information with them and then go
Well, we
from
will
there.
not put it on the agenda for next Tuesday.
No, we have a few days yet to make that decision, so as of this point, I would say not yet.
Is that your thought, Brenda, after we talk to them and then to discuss putting it on the agenda at that time?
To see if they want to
Okay.
move forward with their petition. That's what I would suggest.
But for those that it affects out there, we want you to know we haven't just swept this under the rug. We had a pretty in-depth study, and if you wish to share my copy with Mr. Castleson on your way back, Rick, I can find another one. And this would be good information for he to share with his neighbors as well. All right? Anything else for
Back
Rick?
to the road striping agreement, it is for 52 miles, is that correct?
That's high end.
Okay.
There won't be quite that many miles because there's It was in there to restripe some roads, but we probably won't have that many miles
Okay.
to stripe.
All right.
And before you take off, we haven't voted on it
Yeah, I
yet,
was
so
gonna
We need a motion and a
we
second.
need a motion and a second.
Make the motion.
Motion by Gable, second by Hatton.
Second it.
Any more discussion? Any more questions for Rick?
This is also an annual agreement, isn't it?
Yes.
I just have one. Is this for a 7-day period now, or was this a 9-day period? 18th to the 27th?
Oh, you're back to the road.
We're talking about
Part of
two
it was
separate
the
things.
half days from when we started. When the day we started, it was the half day, so it didn't count quite as much. And the same day when we took it down, it was a partial day, so.
So it's the 7 total days? Okay.
Any questions for Rick in reference to striping now? It just, a number of years ago, several years ago, I sat at one of these highway meetings at a state convention, and it just bothered me when they outlawed using oil-based paint on the striping process, and they said because of the lead and so on, they had to go to water-based paint. Well, now, let's use our common sense in our heads. The water-based paint on highways that are going to be driven during rainstorms and blizzards, how long is that going to last? And I think, it's just my observation, I know County Road 11, my word, it seems like it stripes and it's beautiful for about 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it just starts fading. And it just doesn't hold up like it used to. And the tape that they use in towns now at the intersections is extremely expensive, right?
Yes,
And that gets worn out quickly as well.
yes, we don't use any tape, so.
That's right, yeah. So people, we try. We can only use what they give us. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
By the way,
We have a motion.
all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. By the way, Rick is our new highway superintendent. He is filling that position after the retirement of our other Rick. So thank you, Rick, appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, let's go on to item number 9 at this time.
We are 4 minutes out from 9:30.
Oh, we're not.
We're not at.
9:30. Well, can we
let's
jump?
take our claims list.
All right, let's jump down to number 11. We have nothing for item number 10. Let's go to item number 11, action to approve claims for payment. Do we have any?
Yep, we have a few. Total claims are $721,279.57. Of that amount, $440,431.44 goes to the state of South Dakota for motor vehicle collections and other fees that we remit to the state, leaving the county's portion of the bills at $280,848.13.
Move to approve.
Who said that? Motion by Van Dusen, second by Gable. Any discussion? Any discussion?
Cindy has just a few highlighted, but those are pretty typical.
Yeah, the few that I have highlighted, it shows you what the Department of Legislative Audit wants us to do when one county does work, when one division of the county does work for another. They want to see us make payment in the form of a claim. So the Highway Department charged the government buildings $1,500 for snow and ice removal. They want to see us pay that bill to the highway, who then brings the check back to us. But that's the way Department of Legislative Audits wants to see that. Also on page 4, I did highlight the cost of the utility bill for the nurse's office for the first month, $183.04. Other than that, it was pretty much normal bills. Not a lot for this time of the year.
All right, good questions. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on then to, I think we can squeeze 13, number 13 in there, action to approve personnel changes. We have a couple of them.
A couple of those. One of them came in after I sent out your packets, but is a part-time worker. Charles Rosso is part-time criminal support coordinator. He has passed the number of hours to advance to step 2, $16.69 per hour. And the other one is from the welfare director. She is requesting
How we do personnel?
Personnel, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she is requesting that her part-time person go to full-time part-time, which would be with benefits, at least 20 hours a week. She's recommending she goes to step 6, 17.40 an hour. We may want to take these separately. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
I
what you
think
want.
so.
Yeah. The one for Mr. Rosso is pretty cut and clear if somebody wants to make.
I'll make a motion to approve his
We have a
request.
motion to approve Charlie's
Step increase.
stepping increase. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Gable. Any discussion? Any discussion? Anything? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right, let's go back then to the welfare assistant, Angie.
It is 9:30. If you want to hold this till the end of the meeting, that would be fine, but it is 9:30. We could get started with the public hearing.
All right,
Let's do that.
we'll sit on this till
Takes a
we
little bit
finish
more
up
time
the
on
public
that one.
hearing. So, as indicated, it is number 9. To give you folks some insight, I have asked Luke Mueller, who works with First District, to be our parliamentarian today. He will try to keep us on the straight and narrow, and sitting in the background here, Becky Morlock Reeves, our state's attorney, is sitting here, so we don't do anything illegal, like certainly stay on track. Like I've noted before at other meetings, it may seem like overkill to some of you, but we want to make certain that we do everything appropriately and in order. There's a sign-up sheet circulating. Did everyone get a chance to sign that sign-up sheet? There's 2 or 3 of them out there. If you wish to speak in reference to Ordinance 68, you need to sign up right now, because I'm going to send Luke out to collect those clipboards, and we will organize them and see how many wish to speak. It's now time for us to take a look at Ordinance 68. This is the second reading of this ordinance. This is the ordinance and the time when we will accept public input, and apparently we will have some. That being said, I will entertain a motion, and we always start out with the motion to get the ordinance or the item on the floor, and we always anticipate that this will be a motion made in the affirmative. That being said, I will entertain that motion from the commission. I have a motion by Brenda Hatton to approve ordinance 68 as presented to us today, and potential action. Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a parliamentary question of?
Sure.
So if we're considering, say, an opportunity to propose an amendment or a substitute motion, would that happen after the public hearing, or how does
Yes,
that?
it would wind up coming
Okay.
after the public hearing. You technically can't discuss it until it's actually
Okay.
on the floor with a
Right,
motion.
okay. Well, I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second. Seconded by Gable, motion is by Hatton. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by
No.
saying aye.
We can't vote.
We're there.
I'm good.
We're on the floor now.
Yeah,
Public
Now
hearing.
we'll do second, I better read it, do the second reading
we
here.
have to have a second reading prior to voting. Go ahead, Luke. Share.
I will just, at this point, I will just read the title of the ordinance. That'll constitute the second reading, and then we'll be ready for some comments and public hearing information. Ordinance 68 is an ordinance entitled an ordinance amending Article 2 definitions in Chapter 522, which is wind energy systems, of Article 5, general requirements of Ordinance 65, and ordinance amending Ordinance 15, an ordinance establishing comprehensive zoning regulations for Kyan County, South Dakota, and providing for the administration, enforcement, and amendment thereof pursuant to SDCL 11-2, 1967, and amendments thereof, and for the repeal of all resolutions and/or ordinances in conflict herewith. That's the second reading, and if you...
At this time, I should have been asking for the motion and the second, but we already have it. Now I'll ask for all in favor indicate by saying.
Still no. We won't vote until after the hearing. We
I'm
won't
trying
vote
to
until
get
after
this
the hearing.
done. I'm trying to get us over. I got it, Luke.
I keep catching you. That's why I'm sitting here.
Yeah. All right. At this time, though, then I would like to have Luke go out and collect the clipboards that are out there with the people that have signed. And then we will determine the amount of time that we will allow you to speak. We're going to hold this discussion to an hour. You may say, why an hour? I hope that you people realize that most of us commissioners, Brenda and I for sure, some of the others maybe a little less, but we have already heard at least 18 hours of testimony and conversation by our public meetings. The Planning Commission has been very faithful in attending these meetings. That Planning Commission is made up of a cross-section of 4 ag producers that are actively farming, 1 small business individual, and then Brenda and I, Brenda representing the northeast corner of the county, and I representing the commission as the liaison to that committee. When you, and Luke can count and determine how many we have and how much time we're going to allow, but this is our policy. If you're going to be here as an individual, you may speak, but if it's redundant, in other words, if it's been told to us 6 other times or 4 other times, make it very short. I mean, you know, we've heard it time and time again. If someone just prior to you has come up with the same, whether you're pro or con, whatever, it doesn't matter, but if you agree with them, just say, I agree with them. And that's all we need, you know? Then find your chair. If you are representing a group of people, I will ask that you name those people you're representing, and if they're in the audience, I will ask them to come up forward and be present. This, for us old-timers, this is called face-to-face time rather than Facebook time. This is face-to-face time. The people have a right to connect a face with a name, and you are being streamed live, so like I said, you can share with your grandchildren what you said at this meeting today, many years down the road. Did I miss anything, Luke, so far?
No, I think you're there. I'm trying to read some handwriting.
Mr. Chair.
If you wish to ramble on, you won't. If we give you 2 minutes or 3 minutes, that's it. And by the way, if you're representing 10 people, you don't get 2 minutes for each person you're representing. You get 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever we decide here. You understand that? We'll give you the high sign when it's time to shut down, and we probably give you a few minutes to wrap up your thoughts, and then we'll move on. Like I said, we have participated in many public hearings, and many of us have received letters and emails and met people on the street expressing their concerns. I hope that everybody in here today is from Cottington County. One of the things that bothered me maybe as much as anything when we had these public hearings, we heard a lot from Clark County, Dual County, Grant County, Brookings County. You know, we want to deal with our voters here in Cottington County. They're the ones that are going to be affected by this. And sure, they have history, they have some good things to share with us, and whether it's pro or con. But today, this is your show. This is your party. And I hope that it's Cottington County. So, like I said, this is, like us old-timers call it, this is face-to-face time. Not just FaceTime, but we want to see who you are and how many we got for numbers?
One thing that I would like to add, Mr. Chair, and members out in the crowd, when you're talking, we're going to give you this microphone. We would ask that you talk into the mic, okay, for the internet YouTube stream, so that they can hear you, okay? It's not real sensitive, so make sure and talk loud into it if you would.
We'd also like to have you come forward. Troy will hand you the mic, speak directly into the mic, because we want to have the best picture we can have on the live stream. Make sure your hair is straight, combed, your tie is straight.
Are there any more of these floating out there? Is there anyone who wanted to speak but didn't sign it? No, I don't think, yeah, you signed one. There's no more of these floating out there? I might put one back out there just in case someone comes. Yeah, we do. I just want to mark that I have to mark these. There you go. Tell them to go on. I got 23. That'll also have my flow chart.
Okay, we have 23 people listed on here that would like to talk. 23 divided into an hour is what? Not much.
2.6.
What?
2.6.
2.6. Is that fair? Are we fair? So I would say that, who's going to be our timer? Somebody got a second hand on
I've
their
got one
watch?
here.
Luke has it, and Luke will just give you a wave, and that means you got about 10, 15 seconds to wrap up, and we're going to go forward from there. Is everybody, did I explain it well enough?
Yeah, do you want me to introduce this, or do you want me to wait until after the public hearing to talk? How do you want to proceed? Do you want me to introduce the topic?
Introduce the topic, will you?
Sure.
Talk in the mic.
Do you want to?
Do you want me to just show and project the ordinance or the flow chart?
Both. Start with the flow chart itself. And then do you want to throw the TV on? Today, as we've said, we've got ordinance 68 before you. This ordinance has been recommended for approval from the Planning Commission. After numerous public meetings that date back to April last year, the county provided an online survey. The Planning Commission held 2 work session meetings. They included public discourse, invited folks to come to those as we're capable of sending, noticed those in the paper. There were several newspaper articles, there were a few newspaper articles and announcements made to the radio stations. Obviously our meetings here on the YouTube channel, as well as maintaining a website for this ordinance update. We did mail letters to folks that asked to be notified prior to the Planning Commission meetings as best we could. And then, of course, we've held public hearings at the Planning Commission, and this will be the County Commission one as required by law. The Planning Commission heard several things. I'm not going to restate everything that I've said at the last point, but basically the Planning Commission heard from several individuals. They heard anecdotal and scholastic research that provided opposition and support of wind energy. Did hear from information provided from Brookings County, which has the largest and longest running wind farm in our part of the state, as far as their experiences with their wind farm down there, and then heard a little bit of history as far as when the ordinance was put together. Ultimately, I'm not going to get into too much because this ordinance has been online for quite a while. The draft has been at the auditor's office, and but basically, what the Planning Commission heard, between the meetings combined at them, the Planning Commission heard from a little over 24 individuals that were respectful and impassioned from this county, and about a half a dozen from outside the county that opposed the rules that are written. The Planning Commission listened to them, but ultimately disagreed with the need to be more restrictive than this ordinance because they felt it meets the intent of the land use plan and ag district as is being prepared now. I spoke following, during the discussion and hearing, it was made clear to me from Planning Commission that what is in this ordinance is in this ordinance on purpose. If it's not in there, it's not in there on purpose. If it is in there, it's in there on purpose. And so that's their intent, is that this is the version that was recommended. If you could, there's a flow chart on there that just talks about the process. That's as simple a flow chart as you can possibly get on an ordinance amendment, which is not that simple. The different colors represent different meetings. You can see our first meeting was our first reading. That was last week. this week, we have our second reading, we'll have a public hearing, and then after that public hearing, the board will have discussion. It's during that board discussion that you would see discussion about any sort of amendments or to call a question. If there is a proposed amendment, the process due to state law is that the process would not be to vote on the amendment, but to publish a notice for amendment. That notice would, it would only take 3 votes in order to do so, but it should be advised that it does take 4 votes to actually pass the amendment when the time comes, if that does happen. That would have to come at a following meeting. If there's an amendment proposed, then you'd come back after that amendment. You could do it at the same meeting and vote on the ordinance as amended or not amended, or you could vote on it today. As it goes through there, you've got the publication requirements. At any time in that process, and you note at the end of there, at any time in the process, the same method, you publish a notice to have a moratorium as well. At any time in that process, you could do the same thing, whether it be before you approve it, after you approve it, 3 months from now, 8 months from now, you could have that. There are some legal ramifications, but that's something that could be done at any point. It matters what you feel the urgency is. So with that, that is my introduction.
Luke, that process that you just went through, if there's an amendment, we have to go through the whole process again at a cost to our taxpayers of ballpark.
Well, I won't, I think, let's
You don't
talk
even
about that.
ballpark for it, huh?
I won't. Let's talk about that after the public hearing,
Not
during
it'll
board
be cheap,
discussion.
not cheap, and
It'll be
time
time and money,
Yep.
but we'll talk about that when, after the hearing, and I just kind of wanted to get into an introduction, so that's before you.
Okay, everybody hear him? Good enough? All right, we're going to start out with the testimony. Again, Luke will call the names up. We ask you to come up to the front and take the hand mic. Also, I would suggest that when you come up, you address a specific part of the ordinance. In other words, if it's section 5.22.1, why did I pick that one? I can't even pronounce that word. Anyway, that's what we want you to talk about. If you want to come up and say, I support what the gentleman just before me said, that will take you, how much time do we need to have for each one?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, I would say you round it up to 3 minutes,
Well, that'll
if
take-
that's your intent.
They'll take you 10 seconds, so you got another 2 minutes and whatever to him all around. But we want you to come up, state your case, and sit down and let everybody have an opportunity, all 23 or 4 people that we have here. Sure. So Luke, who's the first person?
Sure. I have Dennis Schmaling.
Dennis? Dennis, are you here? Yeah. Come on up.
He doesn't want to talk.
Nothing to speak.
You have nothing to speak. Well,
Okay.
good. You cut the time and helped out the time-wise.
All right, Joel Kustrup.
Joe? Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Morning.
You want me to sit, stand, or what?
Whatever you're comfortable at. You could turn around and face the camera so everybody could see you. No, you don't need to do that.
Sure, that's the way it is. My name is Joel Kustrup. I'm from the Waverly area. I'm here, I've been to a lot of the meetings in the past through the development board or the zoning board and that there, and you hear a lot of information about the health hazards and the value-added problems and the eyesore and that there. And it brought back 50 years ago, maybe even more than that there, when they were coming through with them big old power lines from the river. We went through the same thing, that we were going to have sterile cattle, the crops wouldn't grow, my land ain't going to be worth nothing, and they're going to be an eyesore. Now 50 years later, they're part of the horizon of South Dakota as it is. I feel that the new energy industry and that there is coming into effect, and we have a chance to jump on board and take advantage of that economically for the state and everyone. I realize that the farmers will be making a little extra money in that there, and that gives stability to a very viable ag industry. So I hope the board takes in consideration that this here is an opportunity of the future. And I feel, you know, the people have comments on it, and you guys heard them all in that there. But as far as the wind project, I am definitely for it, and I hope the board will accept and vote on and positive on this new referendum from the development court or the zoning board, because I think they did a very intense very moderate knowledge of what was going on all around and that there. So I just want the board to understand that, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. And you got time left if you want to. Be sure and smile when you go out.
God bless my heart.
All right.
Dennis Garvey.
Joe broke the ice. Dennis? Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Dennis. Use the mic.
Did I say Joe? You did. Dennis.
Yeah.
You did. Dennis, I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Dennis Garvey from Sheridan Township, and would like to voice my concern with the 1,500-foot setback for non-participating owners. I feel that is not nearly enough. Fully understand that participating owners that are going to get some money for this and what have you, that's fine. Don't begrudge them anything. Don't care about what their setbacks are. But those of us that are non-participating are going to be penalized by having to live with these monsters closer than we like them. And I think with the property value that will come down after this and the health effects that are going to be there, no matter what's said, do feel that it's in our best interest to take a look at that 1,500-foot setback and see if that can't be adjusted out. That's really all I have.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And this is the way to do it. Come up and be specific. Tell us, be specific about what you like and what you don't like. Thank you very much for appearing today.
Lynn Wagey.
Lynn?
Wagey.
Good morning, Lynn. Sorry to take you guys off the corn planter, but this is important as well.
Okay, I'm Lynn Wagey down by South Shore, Leola Township, and there's a lot of talk about the Punished Women's Lake Association, everything in their setbacks that they want, and that's, just want to say that that's a little bit outrageous, the 3 mile and stuff that they're pushing, so kind of against that, but just want to say other than that, I pretty much support the wind farm, and I pretty much agree with everything that Joey had to say, so I guess that's about it. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, appreciate it. Go back to planting corn. Or whatever.
Greg Wall.
Greg? Yep. Come on, Greg.
Good morning. Greg Wall, I live in Waverly Township. The first thing I want to talk about, and I brought it up at the last, and this is as I am the chief for the fire department in South Shore. I asked the question at the last meeting about what the company's safety zone was. And one of their corporate employees stated it's 1,640 feet. That's if there's a fire on a turbine. Now your setbacks are 1,500. So that means that a non-participating landowner would have to evacuate their home. I don't know why that didn't catch somebody's eye that night, but apparently they didn't think it was worth pursuing because they passed it. So I just don't understand how you can, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a participating landowner and have a fire in one of them, but you're getting money, you're getting compensated. Maybe they're telling you or training you about this when they offer you this contract. I have no idea. The other thing that I have is I've seen the ones down in Toronto that occasionally will leak oil, and I know they said that they hold up to 300 gallons of oil. If somebody drives by and sees this oil leaking out of there, a lot of times, as being on the fire department, they call 911 if they see an oil leak, or if they see a spill on the road, or like on the highway, or if there's a car that wrecked or whatever. So we get called out for those, because they call 911. And I talked to one of the employees after the thing, and he said, we are not allowed to be anywhere near these things. So they're going to call us out, and then we're going to have to not go, but then people are going to wonder, or, you know, what's our liability issue as far as the fire department goes to not respond? And I guess that concerns us. And the other part was I asked them, or I talked with one of them afterwards, if there's a 911 call from someone in the turbine that had a heart attack or got hurt or whatever. And they said, under no circumstances are we to go in there. Well, a lot of times when we get called to a scene, if the doors are locked, when the call came from in the home or whatever, we break the door down to go in to the house. I mean, that's what you have to do if somebody calls 911. So I almost would like to have something in writing from them that states that, because I would not want this to come back on our liability on the fire department or the ambulance service. And this goes for Watertown or any fire department. I think they should have something in writing so you do not have something come back on you. So that's as a fire department. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was where I live, right on the edge of Cotting County, and for a half mile south or so from my place to 3 miles north, and I know this because we farm this area. Our aquifer, we hit water at between 6 and 8 feet, and we run out at 12 to 14 feet. That's our aquifer that we feed our cattle, and that's what we drink out of. Now, if these turbines come in along that, and I don't know the rest of the county what their aquifer situations are, is that it already?
It is, about 30 seconds.
See, I know 3 of these guys aren't on the zoning board. How do they get to know what we've spoken at these meetings unless you give us a little time? I got a couple things, and I think this one has never been discussed at a zoning board meeting that I'm aware of.
What is that? What hasn't been discussed?
This, what I want to bring up right now.
But your time is up.
Say, you can have 5 minutes.
No.
Nice, but the time is the time. Do you want to have him some time to wrap up? Or
You got 10, yeah, give him 30 seconds here to wrap up. Rick?
We can wrap up.
What are you doing?
Anyway, so you got these 500, which none of you know what's 500 and some feet because we have nothing in this county that's that tall. So they come in here and they either pile drive or they drill holes to pour cement in. So now if they're going through my aquifer and they're pouring cement and they're doing whatever, or pile driving, which definitely wrecks a aquifer, who's responsible for the contamination of this and who's going to clean it up and who supervises where they put these turbines in so they're not going in someone's aquifer? That's something that, I mean, that's, and I just don't know how you guys can just throw us out of here in 3 minutes when we got, these guys have never heard these questions. They've never been at a meeting. And then you said at the zoning meeting, the first time I went, you stated about the decibel level, that if it was over the allowable
Greg, I'm sorry, time is
number.
up. By the way, Greg has about 3 or 4 pages up here, so
Well, I could have done it in another 30 seconds.
thank you. Our next person is
Karen Casperson.
Karen. Is Karen here? Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Greg. Good morning, Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Casperson. Alan and I, along with his sister, own land in Mazeppa Township in the Cattle Ridge Wind Turbine area and the Crown Ridge. I'm here speaking in favor of wind turbines. As a landowner, it's extra income, it's affordable electrical power. The first thing I do within 3 minutes of not having electrical power is call, can we have it restored? Wind turbines provide employment for manufacturing plants. It's future employment for the construction crews if the wind turbines get a chance to be built, and that's sounding like a big if. It provides employment for the technicians, our LATI. Next Era also works with South Dakota State University. We've gone through this process of dreaming, wanting wind turbines, and that for our state. And now that we're at the permit, and then the next step is the actual building, everything's going to get defeated. I also want to speak specifically to 52.5, the setback proposal. I am encouraging the commissioners to keep it at the 1,000 to 1,500 feet. This makes the possibility, and I say possibility because it's going to come down to a vote, possibility of yes, we do get wind turbines, or no. We are going to deprive our state, DOS, because of everything that wind can bring to us.
Thank you, Karen. Our next
is Jeff Riley.
Good morning, Jeff.
My name is Jeff Riley. I own an 80-acre plot out by Cransburg Township. It's only ever been pasture land. There's so many rocks out there that'll never be tillable. But this, to me, I wanted to be a part of the clean energy, you know. So I wanted to speak in favor of this. Mine's kind of out in the middle of nowhere and on a ridge. My 80-acre land is prime for those guys, you know. And I'd like to see the opportunity to make some money, you know. How's that for short and sweet?
That's what we like. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Who do we have next?
Mark Franzen.
Mark? Good morning, Mark.
Good.
Morning, Mark.
I'm Mark Franson. I live in Waverly Township, and I just would like to agree with the people of letting the wind towers come. I work for the school. It'll be a little income for them. Maybe I'm just thinking of job security, but I'm for it completely.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your comments. Have a good day. Our next
is Amber Christensen.
Amber? Good morning, Amber.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, I want to speak about trespass zoning and setbacks. Non-participating residents get nothing from wind energy, yet we will live next to a landowner who has signed a lease and is getting money. That's okay, they can do that, but they have to keep all of those effects on their property, otherwise it is trespassing and taking my property. Flicker, sound, vibration, blades, oil, ice, all need to remain there. The danger zone of 1,640 feet, like Greg talked about, the way our ordinance is right now, would trespass onto non-participators' property and make part of that unusable, or at least it would be limited use. I think that setbacks need to be increased, especially for non-participators. Infrasound, which is the low frequency sound, can cause health problems over 1.5 miles, and that's with the smaller turbines. The ones proposed coming to our county are 4.2 generators, and we don't have any experience with those in South Dakota or Minnesota. We have no idea what that double-sized generator will do. The World Health Organization recommends a mile setback for children, elderly, and the infirm. So I propose a 2-mile setback with a waiver for non-participators. That would make it so the wind energy people come to negotiate with non-participators for their setbacks. So we'd be able to decide what's comfortable for us. You know, maybe it would be a 1/2 mile, maybe it would be outside the danger zone, but we should at least have some say in our livelihood here. Also in the table, the 52203 table, I see no setbacks for railroads at all, and the public roadways are in the danger zone. So I think that needs to be addressed because those are dangerous to the community.
Is that it?
Believe it or not, Myron?
Amen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I leave this for you so that you can look at that trespass zone?
Just leave it at the corner of the desk, and we can pick them up at the end of the meeting, so we don't want to take our concentration away from what we're doing.
Right there?
Thank you. Who's next, Luke?
This corner of the table.
Are we taking them in order, or are we letting the locals talk?
Doing our, let's see here, we've got Patrick Lynch here.
Patrick Lynch. Patrick is a local, but a well-known face. Good morning,
I'm
Patrick.
Patrick Lynch. I live in Rawville. I'll talk to you three mainly since you haven't heard me very much. So just a quick review of how sound works. In general, right, sound travels a line of sight. That's how it travels best. And what we got going on here is these are 500 foot tall, and there's just no way I can mitigate that, is the deal. You know, traditionally you can grow trees, you can do stuff to mitigate sound. I can't as a landowner, and it's frustrating for me. And I'm totally dependent on you and your ordinance to mitigate the sound for me. So sound, just so you guys know, to drop 6 dBA, you need to double the distance in order to drop 6 dBA, basically. And our current setback for sound is 50 dBA. And what concerns me about there is if you look at any health literature out there, either World Health Organization, CDC, they're all going to be saying somewhere around 35 dBA is what people need at night to get a good night's sleep without any restlessness, stuff like that. And we have 50, and it just seems like we just picked this arbitrary number out of the air and said 50 without referencing any information or anything like that. Besides wind studies that I could see to come up with that number. We even had a couple that came and gave testimony, and they have an autistic child, and their doctor says they need 45 dBA to not set off their autistic child. And so I'm just really confused about the 50 dBA thing. We're totally helpless with this sound thing. As the wind representative said, these things are going to be running at full capacity all the time. That's how they cite them. There's a reason they cited them like this. They're never going to stop. This sound is constant. We can never get away from it. It's 24/7. It's like no sound out there in the county or the state. So I really feel you can't hide from this. You can't turn around and not hear it. We need to do something about the sound. To me, that's what I care about the most. Because I want to live here for a long time. I love the county. I really enjoy being a resident. So I really appreciate if you guys put some effort into that, some real thought. Look at the documentation that's been provided. I did provide documentation from the Minnesota Board of Health that looked into wind towers and stuff, and on some of the recommendations, they're at 35 dBA for their sound. There's a lot of good information out there on it, and I just don't think we can be picking an arbitrary 50 dBA because it was already on the ordinance previously, and we're just going with it, right? It's extremely frustrating to me, and I don't understand it. I've heard comments that this agriculture is also zoned industrial, but unlike an industrial park, we also allow homes to be built in the agricultural zone, so we have to take that into consideration and treat it like it has homes in it.
Could you wrap up?
You bet. The last thing is the infrasound noise. There is low frequencies out there, and they can be sensitive winds. They travel much farther than traditional noise does because they're in the low frequency, and they need to be measured in a C-weighted average so you can actually detect them. And recommendations that Minnesota Board of Health paper, if you look in there, they'll have a section in there. I think they're going with 30 dBC for that.
Wrap her up.
That's important. And I'm done.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, board members. I appreciate it.
Can you give me the spelling of his last name?
L-I-N-C-H.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I have to give this young man credit. He's, I think, attended every one of our hearing meetings and has spoken at the hearing meetings, so thank you for your input. Who's next? We're doing pretty good.
We have Teresa Kotz.
Teresa has also been a regular at our meetings, and if you wonder about the 3 commissioners that don't sit on that board, they have access to the minutes of the meeting. They have access to a lot of tapes. Information is always made available to them. Go ahead, Teresa. Good morning.
Good Thank you. I'll try not to get too nervous today. I'm from Germantown Township, and I was going to reiterate the information that was provided to the Planning and Zoning public meeting where Brenda Hatton and Myron Johnson were in attendance. And we talked about David Lawrence's, who is a real property appraiser, along with his assistant, and what they had found out about Brookings County property values. I'm going to quickly read a few of these, and you in the audience can decide if you will accept the loss or gain on your property values for the following. Elkton, South Dakota, 2003 ranch acreage with 8 acres, listing price of $218,000.
How many acres was that?
8 acres.
8.
Sale price of $183,000. This was an on-link sale managed by broker. If the property was encompassed by 14 wind turbines circling the property. The towers were as close as 750 feet. They suffered a loss of $35,000. This is all public information that you can find out through our real estate listing. I'm not sure, but this was on our testimony. Toronto, South Dakota, 1998 1.5-story home with 10 acres. It was purchased for $234,000. It was listed for $339,900 6 years later after completion of a nearby wind project. Reduced listing price to $279,000 after market exposure and no offers. Final sale price, $235,000. That is a $104,000 loss on that property. It was an arm-length sale, managed by broker. It was encompassed by 16 turbines. The closest one was 800 feet to the northwest. This sale was confirmed by Brian Gatsey, Northern Plains Appraisal in Brookings. Interview with seller indicated the sales terms were negatively impacted by the proximity of the turbines and negotiated with the seller not to sign a wind lease on adjacent farmland within proximity to the residence. You can see that at BK 2.5. Now we'll go into the cropland. White, South Dakota, 80 acres of productive cropland. Public auction, sold for $4,250 an acre. The property has a wind energy road easement, access turbine east of northeast corner of the property. The road access easement payment was $2,400 each year. No wind turbines on the property, but 8 turbines surround the land. Elkton, South Dakota, 482 acres of productive cropland, small area pasture. Sale price, $3,586 an acre. Sale included a wind lease and the wind easement for 1 tower. 17 wind towers supply the property. The closest is 275 feet from the property. Average, $3,878 an acre with easements. Now this one. Elkton, South Dakota, 224 acres of productive cropland. Sale price of $6,375 an acre. Was also an arm-length sale. No wind towers within the property line. 10 turbines in the vicinity, the closest one, 1,700 feet. These are just a few examples to show a drop of almost $2,500 an acre with wind leases or easements. We need the time to do a true market analysis to learn how important it is to have safe setbacks that reduce the loss of property values in close proximity to industrial wind facilities. The turbines in Brookings County are half the size of the ones that will be used in Cottington County and neighboring counties of Grant and Dual. Setbacks will determine how much of a financial impact
Time's up.
it will have on all Cottington County residents, both participating and non-participating.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome.
And who's next?
Sorry. Have Tim Lindgren.
Tim. Morning, Tim.
Okay, I live in Waverly Township, and I am a participating landowner with the Next Era Crown Ridge project. 3 months ago, I didn't think I'd be here talking against it. But, we have a new school in Waverly, and we need business and industry that's going to attract people to the area, not drive them away. And another thing is, planes taking off from the Watertown Airport. I realize that commercial flights are going to Denver now, but that could change in the future. And the altitude out there on the east end of the county is a lot higher than it is in Watertown. And put a 500-foot wind turbine on top of it. A few years ago, there was a private plane taken off from the Pier Airport on a foggy night, crashed into one of those towers, and 4 men got killed. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Lindgren, have a good day. Who's next?
I'm not sure that I wrote it down.
Too many sheets here.
Is there a Linda Lindgren here?
Linda?
Or did I just write Lynn twice? Okay, sorry. Thank you, Linda.
How do you spell that last name?
Lindgren.
How do you spell it?
Lindtren.
All right.
All right, Linda. Now, is this the better half or the most important half of the? Oh, okay.
Hi, my name is Linda Lindgren, and we did mistakenly sign up for, I can't think of the word. Anyway.
Wind towers.
No, we signed up for the transmission line to go to our property.
Transmission. All right.
The proposed 500-foot industrial wind turbines are not in any way green except the money thrown at them. They kill bald and golden eagles and other raptors. They kill bats. The bats' lungs literally implode from the infrasound. The insects, including bees, are killed because their habitat is disrupted. The bees cannot communicate because of the infrasound. There are maps of where the bees have left, and they match where the wind farms have been built. And this was in our SOS packet, Save Our State, that was given. Our beautiful countryside is not wasted barren land, just there for pasture land and raising crops, which would be enough. There are a great number of types of wildlife and infinite insects and all things that make up an ecosystem. We need these areas left unspoiled. If it were just the eagles that would be killed, that would be reason enough to at least have a 3-mile setback from the Punishwoman Lake and all other eagle nests, and there are numerous eagle nests in the area. When you take even one species out of the equation, you disrupt the whole ecosystem. Let us keep our rural areas as pristine and beautiful as possible for future generations. Ordinance 68 is unacceptable as it stands.
Thank you. Next.
Finish my notes here.
I really appreciate you keeping it to the point and being specific and brief. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Tim Nelson.
Good morning, Tim.
My name is Tim Nelson, and I am for the wind generator project. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, I have a rebuttal to some of the things I heard this morning. One is on water aquifer. They don't willy-nilly and just punch holes anywhere. They have a seismograph just like oil. They know what's down there. What they do drill for, see what is down there for sand or how firm it will be for a bed for these bases. They don't go into water aquifers. I heard a lady talk about property values. I deal a fair amount with real estate. She conveniently avoided the timelines. We have seen a housing correction where property housing values have dropped drastically, pointing the finger in the wrong direction. So is farm value property drop. It's due to commodity prices. And we're going to also see a correction in property taxes. They're going to have to repeal them. Cash rent has gone down almost in half. This is an excellent opportunity to create revenue for the county, state, and property taxes. Third, I'd like to point out that I have a mom and a brother that have a huge project on their land north of Valley City. My brother serves on the board. There has not been one problem with NextAir. Not one complaint. It has actually helped the roads. It has given property tax revenue. The county was in terrible trouble maintaining these roads. Now they have cash to do so, where they didn't have it before. Thank you.
I thank you very much. Have a good day. Next.
And I'm sorry on this name, I didn't quite get it here. Is it Larry Elbrecht?
Larry Elbrecht.
Larry.
Thank you.
You're lucky it's not a drawing, or we'd have probably thrown it out.
What was the name again?
Gary Elbrock.
Gary Elbrecht, okay.
Good morning, Gary.
Morning. The comments that I have in front of me are based on ordinance 68. They read road use and maintenance is not fully addressed. Roads are not protected during the operation, maintenance, and decommissioning phase of the project. Construction is the only protected phase. All road agreements should include anticipated heights, widths, lengths, and weights of road in the plan. Financial assurance should be required for roadway repair attributed to the construction, operation, maintenance, decommissioning of wind energy systems. Roads should be required to be constructed in the standards of the most recently adopted edition of the International Fire Code. There's another question is, who do you call in the middle of the night if a turbine's too loud and you can't sleep? This is all pertaining to ordinance 68. Why is there no setback for transmission connectors feeders? They should not be allowed in the right-of-ways. They are not public utilities. What are the penalties for violation to the ordinances? Why is the county not requiring a decommissioning plan prior to construction instead of after construction is finished? What is the maximum height and generator size? I don't see anything in the ordinance for inspection during construction or during regular operations. Who has oversight of them to make sure they are safe? What is their complaint resolution system? What about too loud a noise or flicker or birds are being killed? Who do we call? How is it rectified? Who is responsible? Require aircraft detection lighting if the turbine has to be lit. They should only light up when necessary to reduce light pollution and nuisance in the county. And the hazmat policy has been discussed with Greg Wall. And what is the plan for fire, turbines, or grass? That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was a little worried when you had that pile of papers. But
It goes pretty quick.
It was only one line on each paper. That was good. Thank you. Next.
Al Casperson.
Al? Good morning, Al.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. I didn't mean to point you out before, but you are the only landowner along that road we talked about earlier.
What's that?
You're the only landowner along that road that's here this morning, so.
And thank you for doing this. Man, I wasn't too wrong when this isn't what I come to talk about.
Yep.
When we have somebody going 99 miles an hour past your driveway and the hill's down there a quarter mile and you're gonna.
You need to plow a furrow across that road. You need to plow a furrow across that road. You want to pick up the mic? All right.
Thank
what
you.
about wind? That's what we're here to talk about.
I am here because the good Lord gave us wind, and guess what? You put up a wind charger and them blades turn. The only problem I seem to have is when people from other counties tell me that I can't put a wind charger up on my property that we have owned and it's been paid for many years, but we've owned it since
March 1st, 1950. And that's been a while. But, and the other thing that I want to say is I was a young lad in the house that we were living in.
It was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. And I never forget the date that they came and hooked up the electricity, and we turned that little brown switch on the wall on, and the light came on. And my grandfather was a great reader, or he read more books than I could ever count maybe. But anyway, everybody was happy. My mother wrote the check for the installation of the wiring, and the gentleman that put it in went out to his car and came in with bubble lights. Most people don't even know what bubble lights are, but it made the best Christmas that I've ever lived because of what we accessed. And I really feel that wind energy will help many people. There are projects in process right now in neighboring towns that need electricity or need power to complete their projects. So I'm in favor of the wind energy, and I just hope that we can live as an individual, that we can say, I've got land, good Lord has given us wind, and we want to put in a power plant.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Tyler Wilhelm.
Tyler? Good morning, Tyler.
Morning.
Morning.
Tyler Wilhelm.
Folks, the microphone is on. The microphone isn't so you can hear what they're saying. It's for the stream, for the media that's recording. So
Talk right into it, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tyler Wilhelm with NextEra on behalf of the Crown Ridge projects. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to both the Planning Commission as well as y'all board members for your time and effort through this process. There's been a lot of great public testimony and information provided. I'm here to say that NextEra stands behind the recommendation that has been put forth in front of you guys today by the Planning Commission. We stand behind it and we support it. You know, it's been a long process for us out here. As you can see, there is a supporting cast of landowners who do support this. And as far as what we provided to you guys in our filed letter, and the visuals that you can see there shows the heightened setbacks between Ordinance 65 and Ordinance 68, and the progress made and the step forward that we've taken, and how it adequately protects the public health, safety, and well-being of both the non-participating residents, as well as protects the property rights of those who are choosing to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Next.
Chris Olson.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chris Olson. I hold a PhD in environmental health. I'm an independent consultant, and I'm here representing NextEra today. In addition to that, I also hold a number of adjunct university professorships. I've been working in environmental health for the last 20 years and was able to appear in front of your Planning Commission on a number of occasions to discuss the science behind properly setting wind turbines. I did provide you with about a 20-page document. It was a little bit updated since the Planning Commission document that I submitted, basically trying to cover off some of the concerns that we've heard from the citizens that are not unique as you're recrafting an ordinance. When we look at an ordinance, you need to look at the scientific justification and basis. So when we talked a lot with the Planning Commission about the 50 decibels, the setback from the property line being one of the most restrictive anywhere in the Midwest that I'm aware of, that affords a lower sound level at the houses. It's going to be further set back than the 1,500 feet from the property line as you're looking at that. And in addition, the paper that I provided with you has issues around the low frequency noise, the infrasound that you've heard, shadow flicker, ice throw, blade failure, and the safety setbacks. So certainly the ordinance then as put up there in front of you that the Planning and Zoning Commission spent a lot of time looking at, I believe is scientifically justified, will cover off public health and safety of your residents. And I don't believe that anything more restrictive, if you were to look at anything more restrictive, is going to afford you any better protection for the county residents. With that, thank you.
I thank you, and I appreciate it being short and to the point. Next.
Next is, I have it as Al Robish, is that right? Thank you.
How many we have left?
Hi, I'm Al Robish of the Robish Scramper.
Good morning, Al.
And these things throw ice. I've experienced that myself over in Minnesota. There's some close to the road, and they threw ice on the road, great big chunks, and I stopped in Barrett, Minnesota, and asked them about it. They said, yeah, that happens. Well, I did a little research. And here's a printout from in Massachusetts for the warning of it.
Now, you want to talk into the mic.
Oh, okay. Then I looked, even in Minnesota, 2/24 of 18 in Minnesota in Freeborn County, a livestock was struck by the ice throw. I drive through, I'm a truck driver, I haul for Valley Queen, and I'm on these roads, and if they're close to the road and they're thrown, I just wonder who's going to have the liability policy? Are they going to have one on record for us if that happens to us and hits one of our trucks, or hits me or my wife or my car? Okay, but that's my question, if there's a policy for that, because I've experienced seeing that, so. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to leave this here.
Okay. Let's just put it on the corner of the desk and we can review it.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and have a good day. Next.
Next is Christy Mogan.
Morning, Christy.
Good morning. Good morning, Commission. Thank you for hearing from the public on this ordinance. I want to first address a map here, or a graph. Jeff had testified that he owns 80 acres, which is absolutely a wonderful thing to have in rural South Dakota. The setback for a safety zone is 1,640 feet, which is 193 acres. So if he gets a turbine, and I have no problem with him getting a turbine, his neighbors, he's going to profit off of using his neighbor's land for the effects, because that circle right there is 193 acres. Okay. What I came here to talk about today is health concerns and setbacks. The only way to mitigate health concerns for the residents that live here is by having an efficient setback. We moved to South Dakota 4 years ago because we had a little power plant move in 2 miles from our home. We experienced a lot of problems. My husband's a combat vet. He didn't come home to have to fight for his own property rights. The laws in Wyoming were different, so we picked a state where we had local control. And we have a daughter who has epilepsy. One of the things that we had to deal with all the time was noise and vibrations. My husband didn't get enough sleep, and he got sick. He was sick from a few other things, but the noise and the vibrations were the things that he complained about the most. It took him 2 years coming home to South Dakota, this is where I was born and raised, on a farm, to get him well. My daughter has epilepsy. And no, I don't live in this county, but you need to hear this story, because my daughter, with her epilepsy, is living on a farm that she wants to take over. And she's going to drive down here to Lake Area every day for the next 2 years. And she's going to go to school. And that flicker comes in, and it will cause her seizures. This girl has done everything she can. She has had to not attend high school dances because of strobe lights and colored lights. We have to turn the fans off in the house, the ceiling fans, when she's in the room. That flicker is not some shadow just crossing the yard. It is startling, and it is like a strobe light. And every time she drives down here to Watertown, if there is one of these that causes flickering, your ordinance is having a study up to a mile. How far is the flicker on these things? And if that crosses the road, she could start having a seizure. It will change her life forever. She will not be able to get her VOTEC degree. She will not be able maybe to support herself if she has to stop driving or anything else because of seizures. This ordinance is inadequate. The setbacks need to be larger to mitigate health concerns and health problems to people. The World Health Organization has said 1 mile. We asked for 2 with a waiver. That doesn't stop them from coming in. What that says is that the people who are non-participating, who they have not contacted with that 40 or 80 acres, then has a say in how they get to live, or they get to be able to move away and save their property values. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to keep moving here. Our next one.
I might have asked for you, I have Gary Albrecht written down? I did. Same here, okay. John Henslin?
Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Out of Dual County, so I'm going to violate your request there, Myron. But
what are you doing in Cunning County?
Well, they take my credit card here. I'll tell you that. So, gentlemen,
Thank you for that, by the way.
I was just going to talk to you a little bit about these aircraft detection lighting systems. We talked about it at our county. And after we talked about it, the wind developer, Wind Energy, their man got up and said, well, they're not basically allowed. They're not approved. That's not correct. They are approved. There are 2 systems out there right now that are approved. There's 2 others that are in the process of being approved. I spoke with the FAA gentleman that does the review of lighting for our area of the state, which includes your area of the state. He says this is a great area to use these aircraft detectable systems. Now, you guys are just making these changes. You're just starting to get some of these systems. Put it in there right now. Require that. In North Dakota, they require that, or another system, one which reduces the lighting, but that's not as good as this other system that actually detects the aircraft. When you use that system, you're probably only going to have those lights flashing about 1% of the time compared to 100% of the time. Do it now. It doesn't cost that much. They're getting a lot of money from us, from taxpayers. Let's have those skies be dark at night. Where I live right now, I got windows out each direction. I don't want to see those things flashing all night. We don't have to have it. Just giving you some advice. I ended up talking to our commissioners afterwards. They actually requested me to come in. And they're trying to figure out now how do we, after we've approved it, now how do we go back in now and make the changes. They're talking about maybe going to the PUC and covering it there. But you have the chance right now, very simple, put it in there, require it. The other thing I was going to talk about is property value guarantees. Make them put a property value guarantee in there. When I was in Dual County, I asked them, okay, why don't you guarantee my property? Every one of them said, we can't do it, we can't do it, we can't do it. They can do it. They say that there is no change in property values. I've had them tell me that numerous times. The gentleman that did most of their research out of California, he says they're interpreting it wrong. They do. They use statistics. The statistics, their statistics does not say that there's no value drop. There is a value drop, and he himself, who is their primary researcher, said, well, if they think there's going to be no drop, have them put it in writing, property value guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you. Be sure and gas up and have lunch before you go back to Dual County. We can't tell the difference between the dollars, whether they come from Dual County or County to County, and your Dual County money is always welcome in County to County. Next.
Nancy Henslin.
I will pass.
Okay.
All right.
Then that is through the list that
Thank
we
you,
have.
Nancy. All right. We have one. Did we miss somebody?
That's fine. He likely did, and I didn't have it. That's fine. Dan Kaz, right?
Dan has been a regular, so if you
I
want.
know Dan from other things too. Let's see here.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing us this time. My name is Daniel Kaz. Many of you know me. My wife and I own property down by South Shore and will be directly affected by the onslaught of turbines. I could speak to you today about the adverse health effects, the devastating property values, or even how this is tearing our community apart. But I'm going to take a different approach. I've been spending a lot of time doing research on the turbines, and one thing I've noticed is the lack of ethics with Big Wind community. For instance, have any of you commissioners researched any of the companies coming to our communities? For instance, in March 2016, Lighthouse Wind, a subsidiary of Apex Clean Energy, signed a Code of Ethic Conduct with the New York State Attorney General's office. Despite signing the Code of Conduct, the town of Somerset believes that Apex is violating New York state laws by engaging in deceptive public relations strategies, improper lobbying, and the development of false grassroots or assertive support. Based on these concerns, the town sent a letter to the New York State's Attorney General's office requesting an investigation into the Apex's conduct and that the Code of Conduct be revised. Another discerning fact is in December 2014, IKEA Wind Energy, also part of Apex, failed to pay their contractor, Ambassador Steel Fabrications in Auburn, Indiana, for the work completed at the Hooperstown Wind Farm. This failure caused liens to be placed upon the landowners who leased their lands to Apex in the amount of $1.4 million. As of April of this year, Apex Wind Energy is under a strategic review and could be sold. If it is sold, will the company be purchased by a United States company or German company, Australian company? In our own state, down by Yankton, is a turbine project was sold to a German company which promptly raised rates of consumers by 15%. I will get into another concern dealing directly with Ordinance 68. It fails to guarantee a cradle-to-grave financial responsibility for said wind towers. P&Z Bob Fox had what I thought was a great suggestion, to make the company constructing the turbine provide a letter of credit at 25% completion all the way to 100% completion. The board failed to implement this and instead implemented looking at a bond 5 years after completion. This fails to protect the community in the event that the over 1,000 proposed turbines become the county's responsibility for decommission. Now granted, that number is divided between the 3 counties. However, if you figure, and I feel very conservative, Big Wind's estimate of $180,000 per turbine to decommission at 333 turbines, that comes to $59,940,000. It's a hell of a tax burden to us in our community. I feel that Ordinance 68 does not do enough to protect the citizens of Cottington County, and I pray you agree with me. Though your time in office is limited, the decisions will affect me, our children, and the people of Cottington County the rest of our lives, and I hope you don't end up like the former governor of Oklahoma, Frank Keating, where it's going to cost them over $5.2 billion before it's over. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dan. We have gone through the list now, and so at this time, I will close the public hearing. So the public hearing is closed. We will not take any more comments, and that's according to ordinance and law. We don't want to have anything come back and bite us in the butt 5 years down the road from now. So at this time, I would open the discussion up to the board as we proceed with this process. Any comments from our board?
Mr. Chairman.
Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Luke, can you help me out here?
You only have 2 minutes as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to make a substitute motion to postpone this or
Is this a substitute motion or a amendment to the motion?
Well, I think that since we made there's a motion on the floor, do we have to have a substitute?
More appropriate is amendments.
Okay.
It depends on what you're.
Okay. Well,
describe what you're talking about first, and then we'll
describe it. So the motion to publish notice of an amendment to the current draft of ordinance 68. So is that...
Okay, so what I would suggest, and if you're going to do that, and again, it doesn't automatically have to be voted on immediately, you can certainly discuss, frankly, everything with it. But my suggestion would be that the motion would be to publish a notice regarding an amendment that you're going to fill in the blanks on, I presume, on what it is, and also to postpone the matter until it can be heard with that notice provided. And so for what it's worth, to have the notice to meet the requirements of the paper would be to meet the requirements of state law, and in the paper that would be, I believe it's June 7th is when the next time we could possibly do it.
Okay, let me see if I can get the wording correct then. So I'd like to make a motion to publish notice of an amendment to the current draft of ordinance 68, and I'll describe that in a minute, and to postpone it as needed required by the process. Specifically, the amendment that I'm suggesting, and I want to, would be to increase the setback for non-participating I guess receptors, be it a residence or a church or business, to the greater of the manufacturer's safe distance or 4 times the height of the tower. And by the way, I should pass it. I do have some copies of what I'm talking about for the...
Do you have the, put it on there?
Yeah, let me do that.
That might be smart.
Yeah, okay. So, let me stop that.
I've got some.
Excuse me a second, I just have to strip them back.
Doesn't have a pie chart in here.
Sorry, there's no pie chart.
There is a graph, yeah.
There's a line graph.
The TV just died on me. Technology's good when it works. There we go. Well, okay. Hopefully it'll, so the gist of the amendment is primarily focused on non-participating receptors, so taking the greater of the manufacturer's recommended safe distance or 4 times the height of the tower, and then also suggesting that that apply to participating receptors as well, to take into account the greater the manufacturer's recommended safe distance or 550 plus the two, basically the same as it is now, 550 feet plus 2.5 feet for each additional vertical foot more than 500 feet in height. So those would be the 2 points there. So the 2 things I think we should consider are including the manufacturer's recommended safe distance, and then also for non-participators going to 4 times the height of the tower. And let me see if I'd like to really show this to you on the screen, so I'm not sure why I'm having trouble here.
Technology is wonderful.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So thanks for bearing with me. So that table is basically saying the same. That's then the table 5.22.03.2 says in the current draft, but the underlined parts are the changes, the substantive changes there. So that's basically the amendment I'm proposing. All the other things in the draft ordinance, I'm not proposing an amendment to anything. So things such as the waiver provision that would stay in place. So. That is my motion, Mr. Chairman. And did I do that right? So that again, the correct terminology is the motion to publish notice of an amendment to the current draft, and then to postpone until, as per the requirements of
I'll recap the motion so that, and you can tell me if it feels right. What you have is a motion to publish notice for an amendment as shown on the screen, and to postpone discussion on the matter before the board, including that amendment, until it would be allowed by notice of the paper. Does that sound right?
Yeah, correct.
All right. So we have a motion.
Is there any other discussion?
We need a
Is
second.
there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
Second that.
We have a second by Waterman. Open it up for discussion. Is there any other discussion?
I have something for Luke.
Okay.
We have it up for a table. If we were, I happen to know some of the guys that were killed in their airplane wreck due to saving a few dollars on some lights. I know their families. How can that be added to this motion, or do I have to make an amendment to Lee's amended motion, or how is that done?
What part would you like to have changed?
I would like to see some lights put on these towers for aircraft.
That is included in the...
They are required to have lighting that's consistent with the FAA requirement.
Okay.
That is what it is. And I will tell you, for what it's worth, since you brought it up, I brought up the question of aircraft lighting to the regional manager here at the airport, and the recommendation that came out of there was to let FAA decide what is appropriate on those towers. We do have a condition, we do have a line in there that does say that they do need to request whether or not ALDS, aircraft lighting system, one that shuts off and turns on, would be appropriate, so that we have specifically asked that question, but we want to put that in front of the FAA. If the FAA says they don't think that's appropriate, then that's up to them, and that's the way that's listed.
But it does say, just if I can clarify that, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, on that point, it does say that what I like is it says, subject to FAA approval, applicants will install ADLS, and so that's what the, as long as the FAA approves it, they do it.
And
so
right now, yeah, so that's the way it is. So the point is that it is subject to FAA approval. What FAA says, that's what we
So
put
it's not, it's not for this board to set that policy and require those lights? We can't do that?
We require it.
Well, they're required to be put on in accordance.
By ordinance, it will be required.
If the FAA finds it.
With an approved lighting system from the FAA.
Yeah, so the FAA says it's okay.
Right.
Then we can do it, then it has to be done. But we can't do that without the FAA's approval?
We can't dictate to the FAA what has to be lit.
So we can't dictate to put lights on those towers?
We can say that they have to be lit, but we can't tell them what kind of lighting that they have to be on a certain side. So we can have a lighting requirement, but it has to be approved by the FAA.
So we're saying that...
Then I would like to see that put in. Is that part of what's in here?
Yeah. We have that.
That they're going to be lit?
Yes.
Not, when they're built, they're going to be lit subject to the FAA's approval of the lights?
Of what type?
Yes. Not waiting for the FAA to say you got to put lights on them?
That's right. They'd have to be lit. In accordance with the FAA.
Yeah, the FAA is going to say that we're going to have to put lights on.
I know the FAA's got to put an approval on anything that's up there, but...
That's a good question.
Commissioner Waterman, I knew some of those young men that were killed in that accident, and I'm not real happy with your comment that you said, well, we were saving a few bucks. They were saving a few bucks by not doing some common sense things, by getting a motel room and staying in Pier in a foggy night. And those towers the tower they ran into was lit. It was just foggy and dark. They should have stayed where they were at. That's common sense. And we cannot plan ahead for people that don't use common sense.
Well, and I think the issue is that is addressed in the ordinance.
And it is addressed in the ordinance, correct.
Will be required.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, can I take a few minutes to just talk about what I'm proposing with the specific to the amendment that I'm proposing?
I thought you did that.
Well, a little bit of the rationale and reasoning,
All right.
if I may.
2 minutes, is that all right, folks?
Try to be quick. Let me just go right down to it. I'll put a slide up on there for people to see. I think one of the bigger concerns is you have, the Planning Commission has done an excellent job, I think, of making our current ordinance, as it pertains to wind, a lot better. It's hit on some of the key things, like it already had a good provision in there for sound, being from the property line, added the shadow flicker, got a lot more media on decommissioning, and also, just like we were talking about, the aircraft detection lighting system, made that as mandatory as we could based on FAA approval. So, and all these things are about better balancing quiet enjoyment, that constitutional right to quiet enjoyment of your property with the right to do what you want to with your property. So that's the trick of zoning, is trying to thread that needle. So I'm not trying to derail anything, but I think if we add a little bit more to it, we can make this ordinance a bit more long-lasting, more durable, and a little bit maybe thread that needle just a little bit better. So that's what I'm suggesting with this. So what I mean by more durable is what I'm proposing, I think, tailors to the model of the tower being used, because you use a combination of the manufacturer's safe distance, which may or may not be 1,500 feet, along with a multiple of the tower height. So that setback will adapt to every model of tower. So that's the durability part, and that makes that Planning Commission's work last a bit longer. The next part is a little bit more balance, I think, on the compromise, giving a little bit more, ensuring the quiet enjoyment in those situations where if the sound and the noise, the noise provisions and the flicker provisions don't push that tower much beyond that minimum setback of, say, 1,500 feet right now, that could be too close for quite a few people, I think. But again, there's no change in the waiver provision, so that still would permit development. And I'm not talking about that great of a increase to the setback when all is said and done in most cases, because that property line, thanks to the noise provision in our current ordinance, is going to push that setback out anyway. So this is for those cases where you're going to have a situation where it might not help a non-participating owner and might only get that tower out, either 1,000 feet under the current ordinance or 1,500 feet under the draft ordinance.
Is there any more discussion? Any more discussion? I would like to add my 2 cents worth in at this time. With all due respect, Commissioner Gable, I can't support your amendment, but I do respect the opportunity to share with you why I don't, and I can't support your amendment. Simply stated, we have a planning commission that has worked long and hard hours, heard a lot of testimony, and they're not dummies. Believe me, they've studied these issues, they've heard from a lot of people, and like I said at the very beginning, it's a cross-section. We have 4 ag producers, we have 1 small business operator, Brenda and I. This has not been an easy task, and I hope that you appreciate the efforts that have been put in by our Planning Commission. By offering this amendment, we're kind of hanging out there saying that they didn't know what they were doing. Well, they did know what they were doing, and they've taken a lot of time and a lot of effort, and they've heard a lot of testimony in making their decision. And the decision that they made is in front of us right now, and we need to honor that decision. Beside that, if we amend it, that's just going to draw this out for another period of time. It's going to cost the county money when we start publishing these findings and so on and so forth. And so we need to move forward, and that's why I will not support your amendment. Does anyone else have any discussion? Brenda?
I would like to add to that as well. I've been part of the process. We put in long hours. You did mention it that evening at the planning when they were there, and it did not get any traction from any of the planning board members at that time. They don't want to see this back again. They're fully satisfied, and so with that, and I also have a large portion of my district. My constituents want this. So I'm sorry, but I will not be able to support your amendment either.
I appreciate that, Brenda. Brenda and I live in the country. I live in this area. I live in the watershed north of town, and I probably, as I look at the map, I don't know where exactly these towers will be sited, but I probably am the one commissioner here that lives the closest to any of these towers that will be sited. You understand that? These are my neighbors out there that this is going to be affected. So I take it to heart as to what we're discussing here. It's very, very important for all of us in our community, and we need to work together. We need to work together. Is there any more discussion? Is there any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me to answer some of yours and Commissioner Hanton's comments. Simply put, I'm not being critical of the process of the Planning Commission, but this hearing is part of the process. And so us three commissioners that are on the Planning Commission, I assume you want our input and our thoughts, and that's why this is part of the process. The other point is I sat there for those, I think I made all the hearings, and sometimes I spoke during the public comment. So I can appreciate what the Planning Commission did, and like I said, I think they did a lot of good work. In particular, the thing that I'm suggesting, even if you don't agree with the multiple of 4 times the setback, making use of something that's going to last as opposed to a 1,500 foot, a particular number, but making something that's going to last into the future, that will adapt to the model of the tower that's used over time, I think will make your work as members of the Planning Commission last a bit longer into the future. So I'm hoping to make this more durable. So it's not only about the setback and if there are other suggestions to my amendment, there's room for me to change my motion, I think.
In respect I understand what you're saying, Lee, and I respect your opinion. I respect everyone's opinion. What this motion does do, though, is heaven help us in trying to fill the seats of those that are going to bail off this committee. It's a thankless committee anyway, and when we don't listen to them, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Any more discussion?
I do have something, Mr. Chairman.
Go.
And I do respect the Planning Commission, and I know they put in lots and lots of hours, but the reason it has to come to the Commission is because of the final deal. We don't automatically have to take what they are for vote and what they pass. That's why it comes to us.
Any more discussion?
If we're going to just say, this comes from the Planning Commission, then why does it have to come to the Commission for approval?
Any more discussion?
The boss is not you, not them.
Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Hearing none?
Do we need to have Luke explain now what the process, we're going to vote on this, and whatever the outcome is, then if a hearing,
the number of
if it
votes?
is, why don't Luke explain the process now?
We could do that, Luke.
Before we call the roll, I'll point out just from procedural what we have, process going forward. We'll call the roll. If the motion carries, it requires three votes to carry the motion before the board, which is to publish notice for an amendment as was described on the screen prior. That amendment would come back, and the time that it would come back is June 7th, provided we can get notice to the paper in time for that. That is the Thursday meeting, isn't that correct?
Correct.
They would come back at that time, at which time there would be a public hearing on the amendment only. It wouldn't be talking about the ordinance itself, it would be talking about the amendment only. At that point, once that comes up, in order to vote for that amendment, it would take 4 of 5 votes to approve that amendment. If you get the 4 votes, then it would be into the draft of Ordinance 68. If you do not, then it'll go back to what is before you right now. And I think that was everything with that. Of course, if the vote here comes back, to not publish that notice, we are back to the draft that's in front of us.
I have a question, Luke. When does the notice need to be published on the motion to amend?
A minimum 10 days prior to the hearing.
All right.
What do we make that?
But we don't have an end of month meeting. We should be able to make the June 7th one.
Great, yes. I'm just thinking of my small local newspaper that
Yeah,
that needs a little bit of lead time.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a process question? So if supposing the next hearing, if we approve this motion to publish notice of amendment, the next meeting would be June the 7th, and then say if that amendment is defeated, do we vote right at that meeting?
Yes, what it does is it brings it right back to the floor.
So it doesn't have to, we don't need another meeting for that.
Right, it brings it right back to the floor at that point.
Okay.
Because again, it's just an amendment.
Right.
So you would have to, and for what it's worth, sorry to get into fun parliamentary procedure, but for what it's worth, at that meeting, the very first item will be on the agenda, if that does get published, is the very first thing will be amendment to ordinance 68. That'll be the first item and public hearing on that. And then the next we'll have a part of that will be ordinance 68 as well. So the first step will be that you'll have to make a motion to formally amend it the way you're showing.
But one last question. So then if that, okay, so then that amendment's approved, if the amendment were to be approved, we'd be able to vote on it right then?
Yes, you could.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Now you'll understand why I have Luke here.
Yeah.
Partly from that, we want to do it right. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I would call for a roll call vote on this item. Cindy, will you give us the roll call?
I'm going to call the roll by district. Gable?
Aye.
Waterman?
Aye.
Johnson?
No.
Van Duzen?
Aye.
Ann Hanton?
No.
Okay, that is 3-2 in favor of publishing the notice to amend.
That motion also postponed just further discussion on this item until that time.
So it fails.
No, it does pass to publish a notice at this time.
Publish a notice at this time. All right.
Publish a notice at this time and come back with a hearing on the amendment proposed by Commissioner Gable. I'll work with him to get that draft together so that the auditor can have a copy of that, and we'll work to get notice together so it can be published in the paper, and we'll have time then. So,
thank you, folks.
We're done. We're done for today.
That's correct.
All right, we're done for the portion on ordinance 68. I really appreciate you folks for taking time out and come in and sharing with us your views. Keep tabs, more to come. All right.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
Let's go on then with item number 14, action to approve travel requests.
Let's go back to our personnel.
That's the one that we were.
Yeah, and I have some more information. I have some more information on that.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can we take about a 1-minute break to let the galley clear?
Yeah, we'll let the people file out.
Yeah. That's not part of my minute procedure. That would be up to the board if they...
That's a good question.
Luke, how do we see all the information that we're getting?
I guess we don't usually put on anything from the commission, from the county commission, on the planning commission site, or on the zoning site, so it's really, I'm sorry to play kick the can, but it's actually back to you guys.
Can we have one?
Oh, you mean a
Sure.
copy of their stuff? It's all going to be here too, if the auditor's on. It'll all be here too, but are you looking for the amendment? Is that what you're looking for?
The maps.
Oh, the stuff that was presented.
Oh, that one.
Otherwise, we can just have a copy available too.
Hang on.
I can take a picture of it.
You're always throwing paper away, so you got some spare, I'm sure. Is this one? Is that the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
That what you wanted? Okay, so our next step is to...
Oh, I would assume that planning that would need more room.
Set up for...
Well, welcome familiar faces from the gallery. I see they left their trash too, under the seat.
I know what she wants. She's looking at the under 20 hours.
Oh, yeah.
She's still not going to consider regular part-time.
That'd be good, because the guy that
No benefits.
You know, this one here is a little pre-discussion here. To put her on the 20 hours for putting her on the benefit program.
All right, let's call this meeting back to order. Please take your discussion out into the rotunda area.
A nod.
Let's go back to, now I lost my agenda.
The personnel change form submitted by the welfare director for her part-time employee.
All right.
Her intent is not to be given regular part-time employment, which would mean with benefits. She will still be under 20 hours per week, but based on her job performance, she would like to give her a step increase.
So she wouldn't be getting benefits then?
No.
Is that what you said?
No,
Okay.
no. She's just, based on her job performance, she's been there 6 months. Sarah did a review, and she would like to give her a step increase from step 4 to step 6, and this $17.40 per hour.
This is typically what we do with other employees after 6 months of employment.
This is allowed per our policy. It may not be typical, but it is allowed per policy.
What's the not typical thing? 2 steps?
2 steps, yeah. But it has happened. We have had a number of department heads who have felt their employees have shown incentive and job knowledge, and they have been boosted up more than 1 step at a
I'll make a
time.
motion to approve that request.
Motion by Van Dusen. Second by Gable. Discussion.
This is my observation of Angela working on with the stepping up or the mental health initiative. Is she's definitely that caliber of employee that she's very helpful with her abilities in the welfare office.
Yeah, and it's absolutely imperative, I think, that we compensate them adequately for the job that they're doing, our county employees.
If their intent was to go over 20 hours a week, then South Dakota retirement would have to be applied, but that's not the intent. The intent is to keep it under 20 hours a week after clarifying with Sarah what she was.
So my motion is to approve the salary increase only.
Got it.
And it's $1.06, and I have seen Angela as well, her job performance in many areas. I would agree that she is deserving.
As liaison to that department, I've had an opportunity to probably work with her as much or more than a lot. Excellent employee, very good employee.
Here is her performance review, which you can look at, and as the liaison, you would sign off on it.
For just my comment, if there was be something to happen there, I mean, she's being groomed. She would do well in that position down the road. Very, very competent employee. And I have not read her evaluation yet either, so I will sign it.
We just need to vote now.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, then let's go on to some travel requests here. We have a couple.
The first one is Highway Superintendent Rick Hartley requests authorization to attend the Highway Superintendent's summer meeting in Pierre. And the second one is the Welfare Director's request to attend the NACO Annual Conference in Nashville, Tennessee in July.
Motion to approve those.
Motion to approve by Hatton.
Second.
Second by Van Dusen.
Cindy, I'm attending that as well. Do I need to fill out a request or?
That's up to, I don't know. I don't know what the board requires of each other. Do you feel that you also need to go through the process of filling out a travel request form for?
Have we ever done that in the past?
No, you have not.
It's nice that we know what we're up to and everything, so that's good.
All right, so the motion is to approve the 2 that were brought before you today.
Correct.
Motion and second, I'm sorry.
Yep. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on then to mature business, number 15, old business. Is there any to bring forward today?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gable?
Yeah, we had the pre-bid meeting for the sprinkler system. A couple things to highlight to people, if you might be watching the stream, but I don't have anybody's probably watching that's interested in this, but we had a good pre-bid meeting. We went through a lot of detail. So we had, I think, 3 sprinkler contractors and a plumber. One of the key things to understand about the advertisement for bid is that we will accept separate plumbing and sprinkling bids, and we made sure that we were dotting our I's and crossing our T's with legislative audit, so that looks like that's okay. But for anybody that might be interested, they need to take a look at the link on our welcome page, the county welcome page that leads to the ad for bid page. It has the ad for bid and it has the notes from the pre-bid meeting, and those are important for anybody interested in bidding. So just to highlight that, and then because we want to open the bids next week, so next week on the 15th. And if everything's in order, I think we could possibly award.
I will not be here.
You will not be here, okay.
Nope, I have a meeting, my spring workshop is Tuesday and Wednesday,
Okay.
so I will have one of the girls
All right.
in attendance.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gable, any other old business?
Well, they're starting work on the demolition in the nurse's office for to take a look.
Construction trailers filling the parking lot now, so I imagine that'll be the next thing. Anything else? Any other old business? One to new business?
Possibly 2 different stages on behalf of the project and then
Any new business? Any new business? Seeing none, let's go on then to the open.
There are several events that there could be a quorum of commissioners, one being tonight, hopefully, the hors d'oeuvres extravaganza at 2nd Street Station from 6 till 8 p.m. There is a NAMI meeting tomorrow. There could maybe possibly be a quorum of commissioners at that. I have a 1 o'clock meeting before, but you don't know anything about it?
No, I missed it.
Oh, there was an email that came through. They just sent it the other day to see who was all going to attend. At
Who was that from?
1:30. It was from Angela, I believe. It came in.
Maybe I missed it.
Anyway, 1:30 tomorrow afternoon, down the welfare office. And that is all that I have, I guess. Saturday is the Fire Ops 101 out at the West Fire Station from 8 to 2, that there could be a quorum of us commissioners participating in that exercise.
Some of us may not survive.
I've been through it.
We had
You'll
to sign the
survive.
waiver saying if we died on our own.
Yeah, the waiver statement's pretty scary sounding. Brenda, was there government affairs tomorrow?
Oh, yes. Government Affairs tomorrow morning at 7:30.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. And then, you got that? Okay. I think that's it.
From the last.
What's the hors d'oeuvres thing about?
Hors d'oeuvres extravaganza is the annual fundraiser for the Volunteer Center,
okay,
and that's
that's
their
right,
main source of revenue
I don't know what it would have been.
keep that in operation.
Nope.
There's live and silent auction items, and they have hors d'oeuvres.
Okay.
So,
All right, anything else for the open?
Cindy. Mr. Chairman, I just have just for everybody's information, I have a Glacial Lakes and Prairies Tourism Board meeting in Redfield Thursday, so I'll be doing that.
Okay.
It's not very exciting.
Anything else for the open? I will be gone here Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Be back Monday morning. Going to be out of the country for a couple, 2-3 days. So if you need anything signed, get it to me today or tomorrow, okay?
If I can.
You bet.
I will be gone this next Wednesday and Thursday. I'll be down in Sioux Falls for meetings, but I'll be available on my cell or email if anybody needs anything.
back tomorrow and the next day or the next week?
Next week.
Okay.
Next week.
I'll be available on my salary.
Sure.
Or phone also.
Sure.
And as a side humorous note, contrary to what somebody came up to me and reported was on KXLG about me resigning and moving to Sioux Falls, that would be a distant relative of mine called Shane up at City Hall.
City engineer.
I got that question.
I would like to see that headlines in the paper, all right? Thank you, press, for sitting.
Do you have any
during
exact?
Shows up people.
this period of time. We appreciate it very
Well-
much.
Thank you. Anything for exec?
You got a copy of the.
We have no executive session
We're gonna make
that I
a-
know of. Is
make an
anyone-
emotion
Anyone
to-
here have a reason for exec session?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Hatton to adjourn, a second by Gable. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for during the duration.
Did you get a copy of that my amendment?
Boy, I tell you what, I'm gonna need to loosely fold and put these on.
Whoa.
Didn't hit anything
Oh, you were recording? Well, yeah, I was, okay. I typed notes on all of them, so. You got the tape? Yeah, I mean, you got the count? On stream? 11 against and 8. Okay, that saves me the.
Well, I'm glad the